How will Georgia look Saturday? The Dogs taking on Arkansas. We've got everything for you coming up. Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry, Dylan Weber, another edition of Riding Home here on Dawg Post. And guys, we've not met a lot. This is the new world that we live in. Dylan, what are you expecting from the Dogs as they get ready for Arkansas? What do you want to see on Saturday, Dylan?
Well, I just want to see who they're going to trot out at quarterback first. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like everyone's in that boat, and we just haven't gotten much clarification. And at this point, my guess would be that we'll see both of them. But I mean, that's just what I want to know at this point is who they're going to start with.
Matt?
Yeah, I want to see an injury-free game. I've said it before, but seeing all these injuries in the NFL, I just hope it's kind of a clean game. But at quarterback, if JT Daniels is cleared to play, is there any chance he starts the game? He'll probably come in and play, but if he's cleared tomorrow, does that really change things up, or does Dwan Mathis keep this momentum that he has and take the first snap? I think that's what we're going to see. But if JT is cleared, I do expect him to play at some point in the game.
So this is Riding Home. Yeah, a lot of y'all have watched us through the years, and we really appreciate you. This is year 5 for Dylan. Year 6. What year, Matt?
2014 is when I started.
All right, so about 7 for Matt.
Yeah.
One thing that's so interesting about this situation, tomorrow being Thursday, or most people are going to watch this on Thursday, that is when it sounds like the COVID testing is going to be. This thing could fundamentally change as you're watching this. Dylan, I mean, how are people supposed to prepare for this as an athletic program?
Can you really prepare for it? I
I'm
mean,
not
the
sure.
most you can do is test as much as possible. And Kirby said Monday that they test 3 times a week on game week, including a possible one before you get on the plane.
Well, that's looking like that's now going to be Thursday rather than, because I was talking with someone earlier today that's an SEC person. I said, I mean, I don't want to get on this plane if they're not going to play the game. And that's why it was a Thursday situation. Dylan, go ahead, and then Matt.
Well, I mean, I think with the amount of testing they have now, it seems like you can't fully prepare for it, but you can at least combat it a little bit. And it's not like you're going to have a huge outbreak on your team that 3 tests a week prevents that. It seems like, at least.
Well,
so
but
far.
I mean, Matt, there's been a lot of issues. I mean, today, South Florida and Florida Atlantic canceling, and those are sort of trivial games for everybody listening to this, but it speaks to the problem that we're talking about here. I mean, we can barely talk about these quarterbacks without being certain that they will actually play.
We're going to have Georgia players test positive and miss games at some point this year, hopefully not this week, but it's going to happen. You just have to depend on the leadership of this team. We've talked to players through Zoom before, and a lot of them say, we're telling each other, wear masks, be safe, hold each other accountable. And so we'll see how much this leadership has gone, in that perspective, and what these guys are doing to stay safe and be prepared to play. Because, like Harris Jackson said the other day, it might have been him or someone else, but, it's next man up if someone's sick. I mean, Trey McKitty doubtful for tomorrow. If Darnell Washington tests positive for COVID, you're left with John Fitzpatrick and the rest of these tight ends. And you could say that for a lot of positions, but hopefully the leadership has been there the past few weeks, and these guys are staying safe, and as many can suit up as possible this weekend and moving forward.
I mean, to be fair, and that's something that's been a huge aspect of the Kirby Smart program. I mean, this is just with injuries, if an injury happened, it was always next man up. And injuries always happen in college football. This is just another layer added on top of that.
Do you think, though, I mean, that's been such coach speech for a lot. This has been a rough week for Kirby Smart. Let's just review that, okay? One of these things he really cannot control. I mean, first of all, this is what we can talk about in a second, but today the media, in its infinite wisdom, picking the Gators over Georgia in the East. I don't think that's Dylan's got quite a reaction on his face. I don't think that's really stunning. You have to remember how many people from Florida vote that are considered media in the SEC. It's a pretty substantial proportion of that group. And then the fact that you don't have a starting quarterback in Jamie Newman. So a lot of people are really itching for the Gators to win the East this year. And I'll tell you, if they don't win it this year, I don't know. Secondly, you had the Cade Mays stuff is still bubbling to the surface. My understanding, and one of y'all correct me, he's still not cleared to play. Am I wrong?
Yeah, so
no,
I don't think
I thought he was by the NCAA. Maybe the
Right.
SEC is not letting him
Well,
play.
and that gets to my next point, which is Otis Reese. You know, Otis is. I mean, you have to take any sort of all of this stuff has to be taken seriously. I mean, the notion that Georgia has a toxic program, I have not really heard that popped around a lot. If you want to talk about racism at the University of Georgia in Athens, in the South, and at Georgia, I think if Otis Reese wants to talk about that, I'm not going to argue that point. One thing that Kirby said today was that Otis was not talking about the football program, and he was not. And I think the part here that's really important, because clearly none of us know what in the world is going on inside that program. I'm not going to here to defend Georgia's program, Kirby's program. I don't know. But I do know what the rules have been, the bylaws of the SEC for some time now. And that is this. If you try to transfer inside the conference, it's not going to happen. At least it's going to be very unlikely. That means Greg Sankey's going to have to get involved, Dylan. And he has been involved in a lot of stuff. And one thing I think he does not want to get involved in is the transfer of a kid from one school to the next inside the conference. Imagine if Kentucky's two best players transferred to Tennessee for basketball. That would be a problem.
I mean, yeah, you don't want that president to be set that can happen. And
well, it depends on who you talk to. As to, I mean, I'm not saying what's right or wrong here. I'm just saying what is.
If you're the SEC, I mean, you don't want that to set that precedent that it's okay to do that. If you're the SEC, again, like we don't want to say what's right or wrong, and I agree with that. But if you're the SEC, you don't want best players transferring to other programs within the SEC often, and you don't want them to think that that's possible. You want to try and limit that if you are the SEC.
Matt, Justin Fields transferred. Boom, eligible for Ohio State. It seems pretty clear Georgia was not in the way there. If they were, I was not aware of it. He plays immediately. Same thing goes for Luke Ford. Well, what's the difference with those two things? They're not in the league. That matters a lot.
Yeah, and it's tough because I cover recruiting nonstop, and I see these coaches are recruiting some of these kids for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you can't – it's tough to see them leave after 1 year of either not playing time or not, getting
whatever
the promises that he thought, whatever. Yeah. So it's tough, man. And I'm agreeing with the rule. I don't think you should be able to flip flop and enter anywhere you want inside the conference and be eligible to play immediately. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to take some responsibility. You signed with the school. If you want to transfer to their rival, like Brenton Cox, you should probably have to sit out a year.
I forgot about Brenton Cox. That's a good point.
Yeah.
The other thing that Otis was talking about, which I have very little doubt about him telling the truth about this one, was, he essentially said that Kirby lied to him. I think Kirby lies to these. I mean, that's what college football coaches do. I don't think that that's abnormal.
He's not the only one lying to these.
No, not at all. And I just in a perfect world, I would just say let the kids go and play. But that's not the rules of the league, and if the league does not like their own rules, it's pretty simple. You change them. It probably only take, well, I don't know the bylaws in this, but my suspicion would be that it would only take, 9 of the 12 schools. Perhaps it would only take 8, but for a simple majority. But on the field, Dylan, what are you most concerned about for the Dogs as it relates to Arkansas?
Well,
let me rephrase that. What are you most concerned about, generally speaking? Do any of the three of us see Arkansas winning this game? I know I do not.
I don't. I mean, even if my concern with Georgia would be the offense, just basing it off of last year, and you have kind of quarterback uncertainty. You lose your starting running back. So that would be my concern. But even then, even if that offense struggles for Georgia, that defense is going to stop that Arkansas offense. I mean, we've seen Felipe Franks play. And I don't care if Kendall Briles is his offensive coordinator now. We've seen Felipe Franks play. And it's nothing extraordinary that's going to beat this extraordinary Georgia defense.
But, Matt, at some point, they're not going to win the national championship. I mean, I've watched Clemson closely now 2 weeks. They're not probably as good as they were last year on offense, Clemson, but their defense, I think, is better. Georgia's not going to be zipping up and down the field on that Clemson defense, and they're going to have a hard time dealing with Clemson's offense, no matter how good the defense is for the Dogs. Doesn't the offense have to be better?
Absolutely. One thing that I'm a little concerned about is the tight end position with Trey McKitty out. We haven't heard, outstanding reviews about Darnell Washington in the past few months. John Patrick needs to be ready. Brett Seether, a guy I liked at high school, could play that position and get some playing time. But at tackle, too, I really like Jamari Salyer. Can he be an outstanding left tackle in this league? I think he could. I don't know. At right tackle, Owen Condon, you got a big question mark there. So tackle, I'm a little, I don't want to say concerned, but it's a question mark. And then going at running back, the speed or lack thereof, they're going to miss that speed from DeAndre Swift. I don't know if they have a guy who can take it to the house,
Well,
50-yarder
probably
by his speed.
Right.
Probably Cook.
Well,
I
and
think
maybe
he'll get a lot of touches in the slot too.
Maybe
McIntosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's not a DeAndre Swift on this.
Right.
There's not a DeAndre Swift on this roster, and we're not. We don't have pom poms on this this show. I mean, I think we pretty well call it like it is. Last year, you could see quickly. I thought the Vanderbilt game was a like, what's going on wrong here with this offense? I believe that's immediately what we said. I was in New York City at the time for a wedding, and it was pretty clear that they just weren't explosive. I will say this though, y'all, and Dylan, I guess you go first. I am dumb enough to think right now that there will be more explosion, and that I am buying what Kyrus Jackson is selling, although I've got 20 years of experience to know that I'm getting out in front of myself here. Do you expect more explosion or not?
It's hard to say because I don't think the players that they have are more explosive. I mean, losing DeAndre Swift, you lose that offensive line, which is, which I think was a big reason for some explosion. But for some reason, I kind of agree. I mean, I do think Todd Monken is going to make a difference compared to James Collier. I think the offense was just so stagnant last year. And, you could see that with how many points they were scoring in the game. I can't remember what the average was, but was it something like 19?
Well, they did not score over 30. This is going off the top of my head. They did not score over 30 in an SEC game after the Tennessee game. So they really struggled, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with Dylan. I think the offensive scheme could lead to more explosive plays down the field. I mean, just getting guys open on a consistent basis with the scheme. Guys can be wide open 30 yards down the field, and there's an easy explosive play just by the scheme and the offense they're running. We'll see. Hopefully Zamir can bring some explosiveness to the team. I know everyone would love to see that. George Pickens is an explosive play waiting to happen. We'll see if someone else opposite of him, a number 2 receiver, can step up and bring some explosive plays too. And again, if Dwan Mathis can really throw that ball down the field and push it down the field, we could see more explosive plays from an offensive standpoint. We didn't see it a lot with Jake Fromm, but I think Dwan Mathis, even with his legs, it wouldn't surprise me if he broke a 40, 50-yard run occasionally and give some explosiveness to his feet. So this scheme, I think, could help Georgia's offense become more explosive than they were last year.
So, Dylan, I would take issue with. I do not think they have a running back that's as explosive as DeAndre Swift. I think I'm not sure they've had a guy like that very often in terms of just straight up explosion. Maybe Robert Edwards. Can you think of a guy, Matt, in the last 25 years? Thomas? I mean, Thomas was. I mean, Noshawn was not explosive like that.
Todd could be, but in a different way.
I mean, Sony, I don't know. I don't think my brain is going. Certainly Sony. But one thing I wanted to say was, but I don't think anybody was calling Jake Fromm explosive in any way. And he was not explosive with his arm. I think you're correct about the offensive line. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, Jake Fromm wasn't necessarily an explosive player, but I mean, even his freshman and sophomore year, he had more explosive plays than he did his junior year. I mean, just think about his first home start against Mississippi State. The flea flicker, I would consider that an explosive play.
Well, here's kind of my general point here is that I think at receiver they are definitely more explosive, no question, because of Burton, because of Roseme. And, they don't have Blaylock back. But Pickens, I mean, I think Burton is a guy to watch for sure, and that alone could. I mean, Pickens for sure is explosive, but not in the. Explain this better for me, Matt. How is Burton different than Pickens?
I think he might have the body control. he reminds me of AJ Green a little bit, going up and contorting his body to make a big play over a defender. George can do that too, but every time I saw Jermaine at a camp, he was the fastest guy there. At the Under Armour camp, he won the 40-yard dash, beating a lot of top fast players who would go on to, Alabama, Clemson, Florida, and all that. Everywhere I've seen him, he just moves a little different. He's at plays in
Twitchier.
fast forward, twitchier. He can get open. The guy knows how to run routes and get open consistently by himself. He doesn't need a scheme. He doesn't need a rub pattern to get off. He can get open by himself, and that's something that Georgia needs. Another guy, we might not see him this year, but Arian Smith might be the fastest guy on the team. He might be a guy we see in 21, but he will definitely bring some explosion to the offense once he's healthy and ready to go.
Dylan, I wanted to ask, what does Mathis? I mean, it's becoming pretty clear that Mathis is going to either start or be the guy in this first game, right? So, what does Mathis do that changes things, Dylan?
Well, he can throw the ball really far compared to Jake Fromm. And Jake Fromm could make those deep throws, not in his last year, but he proved he could freshman and sophomore year, but he can really zip it. And so he can fit it into a little bit tighter windows, especially going over the middle. And just from the videos we've gotten to see a little bit, throwing him towards the sideline and getting out of the pocket, he looks a lot more, maybe not comfortable, but just more capable than Jake did.
I don't think there was much question about if Jake could play quarterback. I mean, so much of being a quarterback is playing quarterback. That's, I think, understandably, my question about Dwan Mathis is, can he play quarterback?
Is he accurate? I don't know if we know that if he's accurate or not.
I don't know if we know
any
any
of
of
this
this
sling
stuff.
it. I don't know.
Slinging it doesn't matter. I mean, yes,
right.
slinging it.
Yeah, he can throw the ball.
All these guys can throw the ball. Have you seen Stetson Bennett throw the ball?
But he can throw the ball really well.
Yeah. I don't know if he can go from one read to another. If the first read's not there, does he take off or does he look to the next guy? Can he look past the defense and not be fooled by a defense who makes a last change or play call right before the snap? Can he figure that out? We know he can throw. We know he can run. But can he hit guys who are covered? Can he put the ball where it needs to be on specific throws? That's something I don't know.
So Dylan,
can he adjust? Can he adjust at the line? I mean, that's also a big question because Jake was clearly phenomenal at that, and we just haven't gotten any experience to see Dwan do this.
Yeah, but
this is just all up in the air.
Yeah, but we all three have different tentacles into the program, and one of yours had the ability to see Dwan Mathis play a lot in the recent past. What was the viewpoint of understanding what you understand? What is your view of what people should expect of Mathis based on his work with the scout team last year?
As a freshman, if I was basing off of what we knew as him as a freshman, he's probably going to miss some throws that he shouldn't miss. He, again, like we've all stated, he can throw the ball and he can throw it far and he can throw it with pace, but he will likely miss some throws that he should probably make and that a decent quarterback would usually make. But he'll also be able to hit some balls that most quarterbacks wouldn't be able to.
So he will be inconsistent.
Yes, to put it shortly.
That's not a surprise.
Extremely inconsistent. I mean, I just want to. I mean, Jake Fromm was really inconsistent last year at the end. It was bad.
I mean, it's hard to say how consistent he's going to be because, I mean, he's this is a year later from his scout team performance. He could have come a long way since then.
Well, I can speak to the year later in college athletics, and it's that's not nothing. Having dealt with that myself, you're much more comfortable the second year. Now, I do, from the perspective that I come from in terms of all of this stuff, it's clear that he is the most gifted, he is the most gifted person physically, I think. And you just talk to people that you've known for a long, long time who are in the program and have perspective, and they're not morons, And it seems to me like I have a hard time getting a reading on JT Daniels. I really do. But it does seem like the future is going to involve Carson Beck and Dwan Mathis, Matt. And just from people that I trust. I don't know.
Yeah, Brock Vandagriff will come in and
well, I mean, of the
be
guy.
in there also. But
I'm talking about the
right.
people on campus right now. I mean, I've seen. We can talk about Brock. I've watched him live twice. I've watched it on television a third time. But Brock has. Let's get to Brock in a little bit.
Yeah. As it relates to Dwan Mathis and what he can do this Saturday, I want to see the offense just ease him into this. He doesn't have to do a whole lot for them to win this game and win it convincingly. He might have to do a little bit more against Auburn and Alabama, but against Arkansas, I just don't want to see him turn the ball over. Make the correct reads. Don't try to do too much. I don't know how often they're going to let him chuck the ball downfield, but hit the open guys underneath. Do that first. Hit the back out of the backfield. We've heard that they can all catch pretty well. They've got soft hands. I want him to make the right reads, not turn the ball over. He doesn't have to throw for 250 yards, but make some throws and get comfortable. I want to see him in a rhythm and gain some confidence going into these big games against Tennessee, which I think is a big game, Auburn and Alabama and so on. So I want him to get his feet wet first, or see him get his feet wet, and then continue to progress. But you can't be turning the ball over at quarterback. That's how Georgia is going to lose games.
You have to think that that's what Todd and Kirby have in mind for him, though, is to start it off simple for him. It is his first college start. He's a redshirt freshman. He really has such little experience in games. I think, besides one G-Day performance, really nothing. And so you do have to warm him up quite a bit, because this is a huge adjustment for him compared to the last time he played an actual football game.
Yeah, but the way people are talking about him, and I know I've talked about this a lot, but I've been around Aaron Murray since for 12 years now in some form or fashion, and I've heard Aaron talk a lot, and he doesn't really exaggerate. Aaron likes Dwan Mathis. You can tell by what he was talking about. Now, David Pollock is a little bit more hyperbolic, as I've been saying. Matt Stinchcomb definitely is not hyperbolic. So they all three, as well as people that I know inside the program, are they are believers in this kid. I heard plenty of this, I guess, with Jacob Eason, but it wasn't. I don't know. It was different. I think they were in love with Jacob's physical tools, Matt. Maybe not with the package that was happening. I think to some degree they're interested in the fact that they're getting some legs here, something that they've not had since Aaron's freshman year. This is almost 10 years ago, and that can change things too.
Well, he brings some excitement to the offense, and I know Georgia fans are going to love to see him take off and pick up 9 yards on a big 3rd and 8 late in the game. I mean, you'd love to see that. But everyone's going to be hyping up the new guy. I remember everyone hyped up Trey Matthews coming in, defensive guy, and he turned out to be a whole bunch of nothing, if we're being honest. So everyone loves the new guy, and I wonder if David Pollock, Aaron Murray, and all these guys felt this way about Dwan Mathis in the summer when Jamie Newman was around, or if they're saying this after watching him in the scrimmage recently, those number 1 reps, and that's when they said, oh, okay, this kid can actually play, or did they secretly kind of feel that way when they thought he was like the 3rd teamer? So I guess people in the program have always, thought he had this potential, but now that it looks like he's the guy, I think more people are coming out and being like, actually, this kid is actually, pretty good, and we might not miss a beat with him out there. So
it's always quarterbacks, it's always a touchy subject for everyone involved. And it's like a Rorschach. How do you pronounce it?
I'm not the guy.
Rorschach. I went to DeKalb County schools, so I really shouldn't. I should keep this sort of stuff to a minimum. But I am going to be excited to see how this goes, because I do think, y'all, that the first 30 minutes of football it's gonna shape a lot for me, because in the first 4 games, Georgia's season is gonna be on the line, and in a way that it won't be until they play the Gators. So this really is an important moment for the program, and it to me, it's gonna be strange. You would like to see. I mean, Kirby was kind of like not happy with the defense not getting much in the way of accolades, Matt. I don't know, if you remember that yesterday.
Yeah, I
He
did.
was definitely sensitive about that, and now the Gators have been picked number one. About man, I bet he is going to be frothing at the mouth on Saturday.
Or he's loving that. That's
Yeah,
fuel to
he
the
will
fire.
be. He loves that.
Listen, I get it. They've got a returning, experienced quarterback, and their schedule could not be easier.
You
At the
talking
end of
about
the
the
day, I think it's
Gators?
yeah.
Okay.
They've got the easiest schedule they've had in years. So I get why people are high on them. But it's going to come down to the game in Jacksonville for me, and I think Georgia is a better team. I think whoever wins that game is going to win the East. Georgia does have Alabama and Auburn, and Florida has LSU without Jamar Chase, and they're definitely not the team they were. So yeah, if you look at their schedule, they have an easier path than Georgia does. But it's all going to be about the game in Jacksonville, and Florida was ranked 6th, Georgia 8 last year. I remember all the pundits, analysts that morning picked Florida to win, and they obviously didn't. I think you're going to get a lot of that this season until they actually play in Jacksonville. So it seems like everyone's high on Florida. I think Kirby Smart is perfectly fine with that.
Dylan.
Yeah, I'm sure he loves the underdog. That's the first time they've been an underdog in years now.
He's going to figure
for the SEC East.
Yeah, he's going to figure out how to spin this almost 30-point favorite as an underdog coming into the season, and people are disrespecting him. They're challenging the program and all this stuff. We've seen Dabo Swinney limp his way into this for years. It's disingenuous, but whatever works, works. Hey, let's talk about Brock Vandagriff. So, Matt, he's not a savior. He still has some work to do. Having watched him play, he was out. I guess he was outplayed by Gunnar Stockton up there. But I think you'd still rather have Vandagriff. But for sure, I would argue. But that's another discussion for another time. He's a good player, man, and I think that he is gifted athletically. He can run. He's actually pretty good with his feet. It's hard. It is hard to tell. And so in watching quarterbacks for as long as I have, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but when you see as many folks, he's not Jacob Eason in terms of physicality or Matthew Stafford or really he's probably not so far from Mettenberger, although not. He's more athletic than Zach was for sure. But it's hard for me to say for sure this guy's going to come in and win the starting job. I don't know that. And I think that, I hate doing this, but like the level that they play at is pretty hard to judge against.
I was going to say the same thing. If there's one thing, to nitpick, it's the competition he goes against. He is a dual threat kid.
I think he is too. I agree with you.
He'll be able to run at the SEC. I don't expect him to run for 100 yards, for a ton of games, but he can run and pick up some yards when he needs to. But I do like his accuracy. I think he's a very passer. I love his footwork, his mechanics. He's been working with Ron Veal, a guy who trained Trevor Lawrence and a lot of the top quarterbacks in the country, a guy I have a lot of respect for. He's been training Brock since 6th grade. So fundamentals, he's technically sound. He's got great footwork. He can buy time in the pocket and continue to look downfield and find an open guy. There's a lot to like about his game, but occasionally he will try to force something in there and make a bad decision. Every quarterback does, but the skill set is there. But I do think he's not going up against great competition. I don't see him coming in there and winning a starting job. He might have to sit a little bit, but the tools are there, and it's easy to see why he is ranked as one of the top quarterbacks in the country.
When you watch Trevor and then Justin, even Jake Fromm, he's not as advanced as Trevor and Justin were at this stage. He's certainly not playing the level of competition they were, although Cartersville did not have a great slate until the playoffs. I will say that. I think we so celebrate what the future will be that we forget that those guys are going to have to fight their way through here. I mean, Daniels, Mathis, Beck, that's not going to be an easy thing to jump over the top of. And that's just all there is to it. Beck's going to fight you, period. And so I don't know, and I'm not being. I want to be clear what I'm saying here. I'm not being skeptical of the kid's ability to come in and win the national championship at Georgia as a starting quarterback. I'm skeptical that he's going to be the hero everyone always makes 5-star quarterbacks out to be. He has development still to go. I think he's raw, maybe not as raw as other guys. He's not. He is not as far along as Trevor Lawrence, Justin. I think he's not as far as Aaron Murray was, from what I recall. I would say definitely not as far as Matthew. He's not as physically gifted necessarily as Jacob. He's definitely not as physically gifted as Jacob. He might be further along in terms of playing quarterback than Jacob was in the game that I saw. Jacob made mistakes that this guy has not made. So, go ahead.
Brock's a coach's kid.
He's smart. I mean,
he's a smart kid.
No, he's smart. You can tell that. So I think there's still work to be done here. And when you watch, I've seen him the most of guys. I mean, I've also seen Chaz. I saw a kid at Brookwood. Who else did I see? Matt, help me out here.
We've been all over.
We've been around, up and around the block, but. We do this, Dylan. You've seen this a few times. We celebrate before we know totally what you're getting into.
Because you're always wanting to look into the future, especially when the present concerns you a little bit. If you're worried about the present, you're going to be looking to the future because you feel safer in that, and you really shouldn't, because I mean, like you said, I think Brock probably has the capability to win a national championship as a starting quarterback here, but it might not be as immediate as people like. People see him as coming in next year, but it might be another 2-3 years before something like that could happen.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say is, in the time that I've seen him, the monumental jump from single A private to the SEC is going to be significant. He does have a pretty good receiver, sort of a joystick type deal, but that I do want to see more and more of him. It's been fun so far, and I plan on continuing to go see him play. I mean, he's clearly an exceptional prospect, but I do want to pump the brakes just a little bit on he's going to come in 2021 and be the guy. I mean,
If Dwan Mathis wins the job and plays well this year, he could be your starter for the next 3 years.
Yes, he could.
And so it could be Brock coming after Dwan Mathis, but it could be 3 years down the road. Carson Beck could be somewhere else. If Dwan Mathis is the starter for 3 years, I don't see Carson being around for much longer. So it could be a Dwan Mathis and then straight to Brock Vandagriff. But there's so many variables and there's so much time. But again, Dwan has a chance to really take this job and hold on to it with a good first few weeks. If he beats Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, I mean, this is his for the foreseeable future, I think.
That first 30 minutes, man, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I am going to be very curious to see what we're dealing with, because, this discussion of beating Alabama, I don't think that's out of the question at all. I also don't think it's out of the question that you could lose to the Gators or Alabama or Auburn or, Alabama too. So there's some losses to be had if you want them. But if this guy is what people are making him out to be, they're not overselling it to me necessarily. But I'm always too optimistic though. That's my problem. In maybe in life and in sports. Why in the world are you still optimistic about the Falcons, Matt? What are you doing?
I'm not. I mean, I said before the season they're a 6-10 team. 5-11. They're not as good as they were last year, and they were dog crap last year. I got a lot of heat. I said on one of these podcasts that the Falcons were rebuilding, and the whole comment section was telling me how dumb I was and how great they played the last 4 games that didn't even mean anything. They're already out of the playoffs. I could go on, and I've got zero faith in the Falcons doing much of anything right. I'm in full tank mode, fire everyone mode, hire a special teams coordinator to build a hands team. They're the hands team. They don't want to put a hand on the ball. I can't do it.
Hey, Dylan.
Can't do it.
Dylan.
You all right, man?
That was so easy.
Let's get back to the Dogs. I can't do it.
But listen, there's so much to discuss, because before the next time we get together with our audience here, the Braves will have disappointed at least two of us on this call. Why do I watch?
ready.
Why do I watch? Why do I do this? I mean, like, I don't even care. Like, I just
because it's entertaining.
No,
it
it's just
truly is entertaining.
there is no question.
I need y'all to watch it so I can vent to you. That's what I need. When I get down and depressed, when the Falcons and Braves do this to me, I need y'all to be there for me. So Scott, what he said, I'm ready to be hurt again. I'm ready. I'm excited, and I'm ready to be heartbroken again. It is. I'm used to it early in the fall between.
How is that? How is
Braves
that though? How
especially.
is that different than Georgia fans, Dylan? I mean, like, how many years can their hearts be broken? It's worse. It's different.
Not different, but it's just Falcons. It's just worse, man. It is truly just worse.
I don't understand.
I mean,
again, though, dude.
That's the super. Like, nothing compares to that. 20-0 loss, like, or a 20-point lead blown. Like,
It'll never happen again in
Georgia-
Super Bowl history. No one will ever blow a 25-point lead in a Super Bowl. Sorry, Dylan, keep going.
I feel Georgia has lost some games, but they haven't been
Spectacular.
as epic of leads blown.
No.
The Hail Mary was pretty bad against Tennessee. That was pretty bad.
Well, yes.
Losing to Georgia Tech in 14 was brutal.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
obviously both games against Alabama, but still, it doesn't compare to blowing a 25-point lead in the national championship or Super Bowl. You want to put it that way. But when if Georgia would have lost on an onside kick like that to Auburn
that would never
Tennessee?
That would never happen with Kirby Smart as a head coach.
Yeah, they would have been prepared.
That would never happen with Kirby Smart as a head coach. There's criticism to be had of Kirby Smart. Okay,
yeah.
That would have never happened under Kirby Smart. This wouldn't have
Between watching Georgia and the Falcons, I'm trying to think, is there another way one of these teams can lose a game? I feel like I've seen it all, and then this onside kick happens and they lose like that, and I'm like, man, I have not seen it all.
I'll tell you right now, they're going to find one for you. The Falcons are going to find one for you.
Thank you, Dylan.
The thing to remember here, and this is a little bit as much about life as anything else, but is that, sports is just a representation of how life can happen. I mean, people hate the Patriots, but the Patriots are winners. They've been Alabama, they're winners. I mean, and they have left no stone unturned. That's what Kirby is attempting to do here. But that the Falcons urinate off their leg consistently, I would say, is not a surprise to me anymore. And that that the Browns don't know what they're doing. I mean, you want to take the Hawks. There are bad friends.
They're trying. The Hawks are trying.
But there are no mistakes. I mean, things happen because there's three things that, in life, sometimes you get what you earn, sometimes you get what you deserve, and sometimes you get what you get. And the earned part, sometimes you get that in reverse. What I mean to say is, if you're not ready, if your guys don't click in their head immediately, these are professional athletes, that ball could be jumped on at any second with at the 7-yard mark or the 5-yard mark. They confused them. They did. That's what happened there. Those guys were confused. I get it. They froze. But Dallas was not frozen.
No.
But winners don't freeze.
Nope.
No.
And the Falcons just aren't winners. Clearly.
The Falcons get what they deserve in that point. They get what they deserve. The Braves get what they get, but I think the Falcons get what they deserve. They deserve to lose like that.
Probably the Braves do get a combination of get what they get and get what they deserve. I mean, they've had horrible leadership since Ted Turner is no longer the guy, if you want to call it that, however that is. But
it's difficult because the Braves are scoring runs and the Falcons are scoring points, and they still find a way to blow it.
How spectacular can these teams just get eliminated from these playoffs? I mean, the Braves last year. I came home, I was like, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to kind of get frothed up into. It was 10-0. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And I remember Dylan probably remembers me texting him. He was asking me, how are you feeling before all the playoff games? I'm sending him a picture of what I've been drinking that whole day. I mean, that's what they do to me. That's how I get ready for the games. I have to be some type of a few in just to get the game going to ease my nerves, and it doesn't work. But
I'm going to have to start sending you invoices, man, for helping me through this.
I need it. But you saw how nervous I was before the postseason last year, and that's when I expected them to win in that series. And of course they didn't. I knew it was going to happen. I've got no
But
expectations for them.
the defeatism of Atlanta sports is almost undefeated, with the exception of sort of the Cubs and the Sox. But the Sox flipped it around and have won, what, 3 this century or 4?
I think
at least 3. Okay,
yeah,
at least 3, and things change. So you can change things, and I do wonder. Getting back to the Georgia thing, I know there are a lot of Braves fans and a lot of Falcons fans that listen. So for me, the Falcons pissed me off one too many times, not on the field, and I was done with the Falcons. The Braves, when they decided to get rid of Turner Field, and just the losing of it all, that really, a lot of stuff for me has been off the field stuff. Paying for stadiums that didn't need to be knocked down. That's a big thing for me. It's very.
The new stadium's sick though. It's sick.
I don't doubt it.
Full advantage.
Oh, I don't. Hey, listen. I mean, like, I've seen that new stadium in Vegas, $2 billion stadium, and I'm thinking, really, like, the government is paying for that? Like, that's what we're worried about in local government right now? And the answer is yes, we are worried.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to drop this coin. Corporate welfare. There we go. There's my political speech for the night. But it's stunning to me that as long as the Falcons and Braves have been in Atlanta, they've combined for 1 world championship in almost 100 years of sport. When you look at Tech, when you look at Georgia, I mean, if you want to throw Georgia Southern in there, which I do not, and you're talking about multiple national championships in 100 years, even though Georgia's dragging their 40, at what stage is Kirby – failing is probably the wrong word, Dylan, but at what stage is he not pulling his
Not living up to expectations?
If he's not won a national championship? I mean, how many years into this is it like, y'all both kind of look to the sky like you're thinking about, but how long would it be? Because I don't think that's really an unfair question for the resources that have been laid out for him. And just the general support that he's gotten from the institution that he definitely caused. He should get credit for that. But at what stage does the barrel of the gun, for lack of a better term, probably a horrible way to put it these days, but at what point does the finger get pointed at him? We're still
coming. Go ahead. Probably coming up soon. Honestly, I don't think it's this year, and I don't think it's next year either. I don't think he's anywhere close to getting fired, but
right. No, I don't think so either.
But within the next few years, people are expecting a national championship of him, and I don't think that's unfair to expect.
I don't think so.
They should be expected. Yeah.
Listen,
yeah.
Go ahead, Dylan. I'm sorry.
No, and he has to start returning on that because he has, like you said, a lot of the resources that have been laid out for him are because of him. And that's fine. It's great for the program. But he's got to start returning on that. And the only way to return on that is a national championship.
When they signed that top-ranked 2018 recruiting class, I said then Kirby has to win a national title with these guys. And that's when they had Justin Fields. There was so much excitement around him. But that class was extremely talented. And Justin Fields is no longer there. Cade Mays is no longer there. Brenton Cox is no longer there. Otis Reese is no longer there. Luke Ford's no longer there. A lot of those guys have disappeared. But I said then, Kirby needs to win a national title with this group. The 2017 group has accomplished more than that 2018 group. But I said, man, after this 2018 class, this is the group that needs to win a national title at some point in their career in Athens. And then the 2019 class was as good as that one. So the 2019 class with Nolan and Trayvon, those guys, they need to see a national title too before their career ends.
And none of those classes that you just mentioned were the number one class. The 2020 class was. And that's go ahead.
I guess it depends on where you look. I felt pretty confident the 2018 class was. It might not. I
number
guess
one.
Depends on
it depends. Don't let the 24/7 guys freak out. They freak out about this stuff.
They had Zamir too, and Adam Anderson, all those guys. They had like 8 5
Well, you got Jamari, Trey Hill, Adam Anderson, Quay Walker, Tyndall, Tyson Campbell.
The group was loaded.
No. It was Cook, Zamir. The receivers have been not ideal, Jackson and Bush so far, but I think, hey, they first of all, what Kirby's done at Georgia in terms of there's two ways to look at this. Number one, what he's done has been amazing in terms of changing the forward vision of the of the athletic department and to some degree the institution. Secondly, though, that should have been the minimum. I mean, like that should be what Georgia is. The power of this state is hard to rival in terms of athletics in the country. The NFL, I mean, it's beating out Louisiana in per capita players now. That's amazing. I mean, take Texas, no comment?
What?
Oh, no,
Well,
no.
I mean, Texas is not producing the way Georgia is in terms of per capita. And all we hear about is Texas in terms of football. But it's Georgia.
Well, they aren't recruiting the same.
No. As a high school situation, but
as a whole,
yeah. Texas, Florida, Georgia, Ohio, California. Those are your states. None of them. I mean, Georgia's the Ohio, sure, but Ohio doesn't have prospects like Georgia does. And that's the part that Kirby's got to take advantage of one of these days. I do wonder, Matt. I'll let you jump in. I do wonder when the pressure will really be on him to really win. Like right now, everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid, and I think they're right. I mean, they're correct too. But if you go 7-3 this year or something like that, people are going to be like, "Well, what in the world?"
Well, the pressure's even more when you see an in-state kid like Trevor Lawrence go to Clemson and win. When you see an in-state kid like Justin Fields transfer to Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Push for a national title. When that stuff happens, it makes it even. It just looks worse for Kirby. And again, he signed Justin Fields. Probably didn't go about that situation the right way. I agreed with him at the time, starting Fromm over Fields. I think most did at the time. Looking back on it, it is what it is. But I think those two guys going somewhere else as the quarterbacks, as guys who could be top 10 picks and leading. Obviously Clemson has won one. Ohio State could this year. That adds fuel to the fire, especially from a national standpoint of everyone pointing fingers at Kirby saying, you're letting these kids get away. You haven't won one yet. I mean, what are you doing? And remember, Dean, everyone said Mark Richt was the guy who did the most with the least. Now everyone's saying it about Kirby. But Kirby's actually winning Sugar Bowls. He's winning Eastern titles. He's beating his rivals on a consistent basis. He's winning. He just hasn't won the last game of the year yet.
Dylan, you want to jump in before I wrap this up?
No, I'm good.
I mean, I think the only thing he's missing is the national championship. You go win a Sugar Bowl, you go win a Rose Bowl, you win the conference, you've won the East 3 years in a row. I mean, there's Ohio State's not dealing with what Georgia is, and certainly Clemson is not. But they are taking advantage of their situation, and Georgia, because of the last play of the game against Alabama, did not in 2017. So they at some stage are going to have to close the deal, and I think that there will come a time when Kirby is. There's going to be a lot of wondering what in the world's going on here. Why hasn't he won the national championship? And the further along you go, the worse that gets. Bob Stoops didn't really deal with that because he won his in year 2 and stuck around for so long. Lincoln Riley maybe go through this. I don't know.
I think in time he will.
Well, certainly. Speaking of Oklahoma, you can't think of Oklahoma and not think of Texas. Now he's got to get moving. That's who's got to get.
Texas. See, Oklahoma and Georgia right now, their expectation is national champions.
Right.
That's about their only expectation. Texas, they're trying to make it to the Big 12 championship. That's their expectation, and that's kind of floundering as a program.
I think Lincoln Riley will be in the NFL before he wins a national title at Oklahoma anyway, but that's just me.
Well, we'll be I'll be in Fayetteville. Make sure that if you stuck around this whole hour almost, we appreciate you. We will see you from Fayetteville. Make sure you're on all of our social medias. Long goodbyes were terrible, so I'm just going to cut it off right here. Thanks for watching Riding Home. Final feelings on Dawg Post.